Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yitunde and I'm the blogger behind SewUrbane.com. Today I will be sharing some of the sewing supplies needed for beginner sewers. These are not mandatory, not all of them, and these are just things that I used when I started sewing, and it really helped a lot, so I figured it would be a good idea to just share with you guys. The first sewing supply I will be talking about is it's called the Magnetic Seam Guide. This is actually like something magnetic that you can place right on your sewing machine, and it actually helped me a lot when I started sewing, because sometimes if you've never sewn before, trying to figure out what a 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch seam allowance is kind of tough. So when you put the seam guide right on your sewing machine, you put it where the 5/8 is supposed to be, and then you just walk your fabric through the sewing machine, and it kind of like helps guide your fabric at the correct measurement. The next item is the mechanical pencil, and this is actually used when you're trying to maybe mark your pattern, write a note or something, but I usually use it when I'm trying to grade my pattern. So that way it could be something that I could erase easily, and if I made a mistake or something like that. Okay, the next sewing supply is the glass head pins. These are pretty much used when you're trying to pin your patterns or pin your clothes for fitting, and I specifically say glass head pins mainly because when if you use the glass head pins and you want to press your fabric, you could keep the pins on there and it won't melt, versus if you use the other options, which is kind of plastic at the top, those you can't press. They will pretty much melt and mess up your iron. Okay, the next item is the pin cushions, and I'm sure everybody know what this one is. You've seen them before. They're like some of them look tomato shaped or tomato like, and there are others actually that are magnetic. I prefer the magnetic because sometimes I drop my pin cushion, and if I use a magnetic pin cushion and drop it, everything stays intact. I don't have to try to figure out where my pins are. But so I use this same pin cushion that I've been using for 3 years. I still have it, and they're solid. The next item is your sewing machine needles, and just so you know, these come in different shapes, sizes, depending on your sewing machine and also what you're sewing. So if you're sewing a pair of jeans, for example, you would need a different sewing needle compared to if you're sewing knit versus if you're sewing regular woven fabric. So just make sure that when you're getting the sewing machine needles, that you're getting the correct one. The next item is the measuring tape. And these are used to take your body measurement, and if you're using patterns, you use it to take your bust, waist, and hips measurement. And if you're a more like savvy sewer and you know how to make your own patterns, and then there are more measurements to take, of course, and this the measuring tape will help with that. Beeswax are needed when you're hand sewing, mainly because you don't want your thread to get tangled when you're doing that. So what usually happens is you run your thread through the beeswax, lay it on, like, put a paper towel on your ironing board, lay the thread on top of a paper towel, and then fold the paper towel on top of the thread. Then you actually put your iron, place it on top of the paper towel, and pull the thread slowly through the paper towel, so that you can, from under the iron, and that will make the thread silk-like. And you usually do this a couple of times. And so when you hand sew, like I said before, your thread will not get tangled. It will be all smooth sewing, and you won't have any problems. Another must-have sewing supply is the seam ripper. Every sewing enthusiast, every sewing expert, beginner has this, and you need it all the time, because we do sometimes make mistakes, and when we do make these mistakes, sewing rippers is needed to correct them. The next item is called the tailor's chalk, and these are used to mark fabrics, and they actually come in different shapes. Some of them are just literally a chalk, and some of them comes in like powdery form, and you put it through another container. Another item which everybody knows about is the safety pin. And if you're a beginner sewer, safety pins are important. Actually, no, even if you're sewn for a long time, they're important because we use them for elastic bands. So I usually, my first sewing project actually, I made a skirt, an elastic waist skirt, and the sewing safety pins were important then because I just pinned my safety pin at the end of my the elastic band, and I just put it through my skirt. So another sewing supply needed is a ruler, of course, and I would suggest that if you're a beginner, you should get a clear ruler. That way, when you're doing a marking on your fabric or a pattern whatsoever, that you're able to see through it and know exactly what you're marking. The next item, which is one of my favorite, and I use it all the time, is the metal sewing gauge. This is very important, and I love it because every single corner of this, or every single side of this sewing gauge, has some type of measurement. So if I wanted something a 1/4 inch, it's right there, easy, just grab it, and it's so small that it's so convenient to use. And so I use that every single time if I wanted something an inch or wide or 5/8. Another one of my favorite sewing supply is the scissors. And as a sewer, you should have or always have a fabric scissors and also a paper scissors. Okay, so the next item is the tracing paper. And these tracing papers I actually use it to mark my darts. And they are like smooth on one side, and the other side has like wax fill. So when you use your tracing wheel, which is another item, you use the tracing wheel to transfer the wax onto your fabric. The toolbox, which you can put all of the sewing supplies that we've spoken about, put it in there, and you can carry it along with you. I still use mine that I have from I got like 3 years ago, and I take it everywhere with me, especially when I'm doing a shoot or if I'm teaching a class or whatever. And I've been adding to it, so my sewing box right now is full of stuff. And finally is actually the notions that are required based on the pattern you're trying to sew. So at the back of your pattern, you might see something that says, okay, you need a 22-inch zipper, or elastic waistband, hook and eye. So just make sure that once you get all the supplies that I mentioned earlier, when you're ready to sew a specific pattern, that you look at the back of the pattern and pick exactly what they're telling you to get, because then that way you'll be able to make your garment easily. Easily. So that's sewing supplies. The next sewing supply is the magnetic. No, it's not. I already talked about that one. But I'm distracted by you. I don't know why. Fabric. Behind sewurbane.com.